Guys, this is my first YouTube video. I'm coming up with a trigger scenario where we will be using map, extensive map, how to use using map, how to write a advanced trigger. Uh, okay. So what is the scenario? Let me first brief you about the scenario. What is the scenario? So we have a standard opportunity object. So we are creating a validation rule on opportunity object. And what is that validation? Yeah, we have a opportunity stages in opportunity object. So the validation is when you select stage as source one, and if there is no file with the name test, then you can't close one the opportunity. So this is the scenario. So what we are using here, first thing is opportunity. We are closing the opportunity with close one status, and we are checking that there should be a file with the title test. If it is not there, it will throw error. So these are related steps where we can get all the related objects related to opportunity. So one object is files also there where we can upload the file. Okay. So we will achieve this how through trigger, how we can create this validation rule. So before writing a trigger, we need to understand how files are stored in database. So let's understand that first. See, so for whenever we create a file into any object, the data goes into two objects. One is the content document, another is the content document link. Let's see it also in the minute. I'm opening the resources. Let's show you. So this is the content document object. So here the physical file will be coming. What type of file is there, and there are a lot of things are there. So this is the object where the file will be coming. Then there is another object which will also get created whenever you create a file. That is a content document link. This object will store the information that this file belongs to which object. Files can be attached in opportunity object, account object, contact object. But how database will know, content document will know that it belongs to which object? So that information is there into this content document link. Let's see this with this small diagram. So the actual file will be there in the content document object, and content document link object will have information that which object this file belongs to. So this is a junction object. Okay, we use junction object for establishing many-to-many relationship in Salesforce. So see here in our example, we have opportunity object. We are creating files into opportunity. Those will be stored in the content document. The files will be stored in the content document, and the information which file belongs to which object will be there in the content document link. So I have mentioned all the important fields here. So in the content document link, there will be a link entity ID. This is here in our case, this is a opportunity ID. See, I have through data also I have mapped it. Like the opportunity ID is, suppose let's take example, opportunity ID 1232. So this linked entity ID will store 1232. And this content document ID will store the ID of content document. So this record ID 6767 will be stored in the content document ID. So the junction object has the what is that? MD relationship with both the parents. Here, one parent is opportunity, another parent is content document. Okay. So now for reading the content document, the what files are there in the content document, we need to first go to content document link, then we can go into content document. So let's see, now let's see the trigger, like how we have written the trigger for this. Okay, so this trigger will be first only on before update, because it needs files and everything, so we can't have in the before insert. There is no point having closing the opportunity in the insert itself. So it will always be a before update scenario. Now, first thing what we are doing, we are looping on trigger.new list, which will be having all the input opportunities. Now, second thing, we are checking which are the records are close to our scenario. What is our scenario? The opportunity stage should be close one, and it's not. It should be from different stage to close one. So we are checking that the large stage should not be close one, and the current stage should be close one. We will store all these IDs into this list. So all these IDs, input IDs will be into this list, which are fulfilling our criteria. Now, what we need to do with this list, we will read the content document link. Here I've created some map and list. I will explain you why. Let's see this. We are retrieving all the content document links related to the input opportunities which are fulfilling our criteria. So this list will get created where all our desired content document links data will be there. Right? Now, what we need to do? We need to create a map. Here we will populate this map. What information this map will have? The key will be the opportunity ID or links identity ID, and this will be the list of content document links. So how much? Definitely there could be multiple files attached to a object, attached to a record. So it could be a list. So we are creating a list into map to store all the content document links record mapped to the link entity ID. So we are iterating on this CDL list, which is having all the content document link list. And what we are doing here, through this code, we are creating populating this map. This map contains list. For any map contains list, we first need to create a key, initialize the list, then we can add the data into the list. So this is the way. You just for populating any map with the list, especially with the ID and list, this is the way. You can remember this code, like this always, this is the way to populate this kind of map. These 3-4 lines will be required. And this is very much helpful in lot of places. You have to, in the advanced figure, you may have to use it. Okay. So what we are doing here, populating this map. Also, we are creating a list of content document ID. Why we are getting this content document ID list? Because based on this content document ID list, we will retrieve content document. Because the actual file is there in the content document. Here is the actual file. For reading this content document, we need this content document ID. So we have created this list of content document ID. So now we have two things. One is the content document ID list. Another is the map, which is having mapping of link entity ID and the list of content document list. Now what we are doing here, we are retrieving the data from content document based on this list, ID list. Now we got all the content documents, all the files, right? Now we need to check which file has the title test. So here we are iterating on this list, and we are checking if the title is test, then we are storing this ID into this list. Which is this ID? Contain document ID. So here in this list, we will get all the contain document ID which are having title as file title as TEST. Why we are creating this list? We will come to know. This list will help us to find out the opportunities which are having file title as TEST. Now our main job comes. We need to iterate on our trigger.new again, because now we need to put the validation rule. We are defining a Boolean flag. We are every time we are checking it, we are setting it false. Now we need to have another for loop which will on each opportunity how much contain document links are there stored into this map. So we will get this list from this code cdrm.get that opportunity. We will pass the key, and if this now we are iterating on this list. So we will see if any of the content document IDs having are present into this list, this flag will get true. So mean to say if any of the file of that opportunity is having file title as TEST, this flag will get true. And here we will check this flag, and if this flag is not true, means there is no file, then we will give this error. So this is the way we are written trigger. Here most important thing is how to use map to store the information so that we need not to retrieve the data multiple times. I hope you are getting what this trigger is doing. Now see, there is another method where we can more simplify this trigger. Let's see how. So see, right now what we are doing, we are first retrieving content document link, then we are retrieving content document to find out what is the title. But here is, if we in our circle, if we use this, if we retrieve this data, content document or title here in this list itself, then we need not to retrieve content document. So in that case, what will happen? Here itself we will check all these commented code are for this. So what we will do, we will check if title is test, then only, then what it will do, it will add this data into this list ID list PO. Means what we are doing here itself, we are creating a list which will tell us what all opportunities has file as test. You consider it TEST here. So now we don't need this code. We directly will come here. We don't need this code. We will directly see. We will iterate on this opportunity loop, and we will here in this list. We will check if this opportunity ID is present, means file is there. If it is not present, means we need to give error. So we will simplify it. This way, it will become very simple trigger. So this is the way you can write trigger. There are multiple ways of writing trigger, but best trigger is, we have some best practices that we should not retrieve the data multiple times. At least we should not retrieve the data in the loop. We should not, we should avoid looping under looping. So in the second method, we are avoiding this loop also. So second method is best method. Okay. So this is the way we can write a advanced trigger. I will paste this code into my description, so you can refer it. You can go through it. If you want to test it, you can test it also in your org. This is a standard trigger, and opportunity is a standard object. So in a developer org also you can test it, and you can share your feedback. Like if there may be more better way of writing this trigger, then please let me know in your comments. Thank you very much.